Over the last few years, the popularity of camping and RVing has really exploded, and there's a lot more people enjoying our parks, and that's a great thing. But a lot of those people are relatively new, and there are some unwritten rules for camping and RVing that we just wanted to go over and share with you. Again, we're not trying to have a negative story. These are things to do and things not to do when you're camping, and we can admit right up front that we've even made some of these mistakes. We are Terry and Cindy O'Keefe, and we've been camping together for more than 40 years. And we invite you to join us as we share our latest RVing experiences and adventures. So let's start off the top with everyone's favorite place, the dump station or the sanitation station.
I always appreciate it when someone's ready to go and organized.
If you see that there is a long line and you're sitting waiting, get your stuff ready.
There we go.
Yeah, if there's people waiting, that's probably not the time that you want to spend 15 minutes rinsing out your black tank. And I'm actually thinking the last time we were at Algonquin, we were in a long line, and the two trailers in front of us, it was like watching a NASCAR pit crew. Those guys had their tanks dumped, hoses put away in record time. It was quite something to watch. And again, if you're waiting in line or you're at the dump station, be considerate of the people who are waiting behind you. We encountered one situation where we were waiting behind a motorhome to dump his tanks, and rather than moving forward when he was finished, he took that opportunity while we were still waiting to use the sanitation station to hook up his toad, and spent another 5 minutes hooking up his toad and checking the brakes right there at the sanitation station. There was really no need for that. They could have simply pulled ahead 100 feet and done it there. And there's one other thing to remember at the dump station.
Be sanitary.
That is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
This actually occurred, and we were frankly quite shocked that this gentleman decided to dump his tanks without using a hose, simply out onto the concrete pad and into the drain. Now, he did use the hose to move everything away, but it was pretty gross.
Yeah, it was. So, noise. If it's common sense if you're going to be playing your music, and I might like to play something and Terry really doesn't want to hear that. It's just, keeping the music, the noise down. Having said that, most parks will have radio-free zones, which theoretically should be a little quieter, but then there are other noises that come into play.
This is all about consideration and being considerate of your fellow campers. The music you love shouldn't have to be, forced on everyone around you. But talking about other noise, we were in a campground not too long ago where there was a family with some small children with bikes. And the kids were riding as fast as they could and up to their campground, and slamming on their brakes to see who could make the longest skid mark. It was great. They were having fun. And we could very clearly hear the parents say, "Would you please go do that somewhere else?" And they did, right in front of our campsite. So just, it's about consideration. And I will admit, when it comes to noise, I do have one little pet peeve. Cindy thinks it's silly, but it's impact guns. When people use an actual impact driver to put their stabilizer jacks up and down. For some reason, that noise really, really gets to me when you could just as easily use an electric drill that would be pretty silent. Maybe this gets me going because we actually had one guy do this at 6 a.m. when they were leaving and right next to us. So again, just be considerate with the noise you're making.
The other noise also would be pets. If you are traveling with your pets and you leave them alone, I mean, we do that with Ranger, but we know that he will be quiet. He won't bark. But when you go through a campground and you're hearing, some poor dog like barking, 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 again, noise that doesn't need to be heard.
Yeah, we feel bad when we hear a dog barking that's been left in a trailer alone. We feel bad for the dog, but it's also annoying because the people that are in the site right next to that get to listen to that for 4, 5, 6 hours.
Yeah. So lights when you're camping, lovely little twinkling camping lights are great. They're nice. They add a nice little, ambiance. But other lights, not so much.
Yeah, we're not trying to sound like the Grinch. People put up some really pretty lights and things, but when those lights intrude on other people, it's a different kind of noise. It's light noise. We've had situations where one family brought a huge spotlight that mounted on the side of their trailer, and it turned nighttime into daytime, which was great for them because they sat in different parts of their campsite at night, reading books, playing games, even though it was pitch black outside. But it also did the same thing to 5 or 6 sites around them. People were actually, when they turned the light off to go to bed, people clapped. It was annoying that many other campers. So again, it's about consideration. Um, you know, People love to put the lights on under their awning or whatever, and that's great. But you don't have to leave them on all night long because other people that are enjoying a campfire like to have the darkness that comes. In the provincial park and looking at the stars and the night skies. We actually just very, very recently had a situation where there was a trailer that was backed into where our site was and our campfire was, and they used the fuse into the 7-way plug trick that turned on all the trailer lights, all the running lights and brake lights. And they left them on 24/7, and it was quite something to sit there at the campfire and be blinded by their brake lights. It was,
Yeah, we couldn't move anywhere else.
So again, it's about consideration. Ranger, what's this? The people who were on the site before leave us some lovely garbage in the fireplace.
So there is nothing worse than getting to your beautiful campsite and you look into your fireplace and there's someone else's garbage and you're having to clean up their mess. This is an extreme example, but we were camping and we came to our site and someone had actually dumped their kitty litter into the fireplace. Again, that's a really extreme example, but totally disgusting. But yeah, leave it as you would like to see it.
It was 7 days worth of cat poop.
Yeah.
In our fireplace.
Extreme example though. Yeah.
We don't cook in our fireplace very often, but it was we actually had to clean it out so that we could have campfires. The other thing that when Cindy talked about when you get there and there's garbage in your campfire, don't get us wrong. We burn paper plates in our fireplace, but we don't leave them for the next person because the site might be empty for 2 days and it rains and that paper gets soggy and it's not going to burn and it's just a mess that the next camper has to clean up. And just while we're on the topic, it's important to observe that same type of campsite cleanliness when you're collecting water at the little water fill stations throughout the park.
It's important that you don't let this tap become a sink. Please, don't be washing your dishes here, because what invariably happens is you get food debris that comes off the plates and pots and pans. It ends up right down here, and it's a bear attractant. And now we've got bears coming into the campground looking for easy food, and bear-human interactions. You just don't want them in the campground because inevitably a fed bear becomes a dead bear.
Okay, next one is certainly leaving your site on time. Other people have paid to use and enjoy your site as soon as you leave, but if it's 2 p.m. and you've come to your site and folks are still just beginning to pack up, you have to wait in the side of the road. So again, consider it, right?
Yeah. And we experienced that actually 2 or 3 years ago trying to get into this exact site behind us. The people weren't even, we showed up at 2:05. They hadn't even started to pack up and they were nowhere to be seen. We just sat on the side of the road for an hour waiting for them.
See that kind of dead tree at the bottom? He just came out, went in the water, and went back in.
This is another one that always surprises me, especially when there's a sign that says active bear in campground. You're going for your walk and you look at people's sites and admire their trailers, and then you look at the tables and you got all kinds of food there. It's like, really?
It's an invitation. It's wildlife attractants, and we've had over the many years that we've camped many bear encounters, but we've probably had just as many raccoon encounters. And in fact, at a site not too far from here, a few years ago, some people went to visit other people at night when the raccoons like to come out, and they left everything on their picnic table. And there was a horde of raccoons that came to visit.
They were having a party.
They were, you could hear everything flying off the table. But the problem was, the raccoons had to go through our site to get there. And we were literally sitting around the campfire, and Ranger was there, and fortunately he was tied up. But all these raccoons going through our campsite, and it's partly funny, but it can lead to a mess. And if it had been bears rather than raccoons, it could be a different story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our second last tip, we debated whether we would include it, but we've had the experience where someone has parked their vehicle on your campsite. And it doesn't happen often, but please do remember to keep your vehicles and your stuff on your site and not put them on someone else's site just because it happens to be empty at that time, because someone's going to show up and want to use it. And in the instance that we had, these people had parked their pickup truck beside their camping trailer, which was basically the front lawn for our site. They were quite close together, and then gone away for the weekend. And we literally showed up where we backed our trailer in, walked out our step, and there was someone's pickup truck 2 feet in front of it. And fortunately, even though the campground was full, the campground management, it was a community campground, did find a site for us, and it actually turned out to be a better site.
Yeah, it was.
But that truck was there all weekend. This is more of a tip. When someone is arriving at their campground and they're backing up or setting up, or maybe they're getting ready to leave and they're hitching up, that's not the time to stop and ask them about their RV or their trailer or their truck. A lot of us have checklists and systems that we're using and that we've always done. And when you interrupt that flow, that's when mistakes can happen. So don't interrupt someone. You might have a great question to ask them, but don't interrupt them when they're in the process of parking or hitching up.
And if you see someone getting ready to back into their site, they're blocking the road, be patient, because we've all done that. We're trying to get in just right. So be patient. So this is probably my number one pet peeve, is people who cut through your campsite. Perhaps you're close to a washroom. Perhaps you're close to the beach. So they figure, oh, here's a shortcut, and they cut right through your campsite. Again, it's being considerate, right?
Yeah, I mean, people think of their campsite as it's their property. They've rented it. And it really is. You wouldn't walk through your neighbor's backyard at home or someone you don't know's backyard at home just because it's closer to get to the park that way. And be that way in a campground too. Take the path, take the road, even if it means going a little further. We've actually...
We've had a whole family cut through to get to the beach.
Yeah. We've had kids ride their bicycles underneath our awning. And this summer, we actually had one young lady actually walk within 5 feet of the door of the trailer, right through our site, even though there was a road on one side of our site and a path on the other. People want their privacy, and we have to respect that. And there could be a dog on the site. He might be tied up, and you come walking through and you startle that dog, and whatever might happen, it's really, so, Cindy says it's her number one pet peeve. It's my number one pet peeve, and I think it is for a lot of people. So respect the privacy of that campsite. We've actually seen recently one camper who felt the same way, and people must have been accessing the beach and the path behind their site, and he actually put up a no trespassing sign at the front of their campsite.
A little bit extreme.
But I understand why they might want to do it, because it continues to be a problem in many campgrounds. So just to wrap this topic up, some of the occurrences that we've talked about happen because of inexperience or mistakes. Sometimes they're thoughtless or rude. But if we try to keep these etiquette tips in mind, it will help ensure that yours and everyone else's next camping trip is enjoyable and stress-free.